But since we have a difference of two squares here, we're just going to say 4x squared minus 1, because we can factor this. You can either use factoring or you can use completing the square. Alright, well let's use completing the square this time. We know that we have x plus 1 equals 0, right? And so that gives us negative 1, and we knew that. And the other one's going to be 4x squared minus 1 equals 0. And now we solve for x. So we're going to add 1, right? And we get 4x squared equals 1 divided by 4. And we get, move this up here, we get x squared equals to 1 over 4. So we apply square root to both sides. You got to remember that plus or minus. And we get x equals to plus or minus 1/2. Okay, so our zeros, there's going to be 3 of them this time. Okay, we have negative 1, and we have negative 1/2, and a positive 1/2. And you could list this 1/2 as plus or minus, excuse me, plus or minus 1/2 if you like, that would be fine. Just keep in mind that WebAssign will most likely ask for it as three separate zeros. Alright. Let's try another one. Here we have p of x is equal to 2x to the 4th plus 3x cubed minus 4x squared minus 3x plus 2. Alright, so we need to find our p and our q, right? So we have p over q. We're looking for factors of 2 over 2. So here's our p and our q. Factors of 2 are 1 and 2. And the other factors of 2 are 1 and 2. So we're going to have plus or minus 1 over 1. Plus or minus, again, p is in the numerator, 2 over 1. So that's just going to be plus or minus 2. And then here we're going to have plus or minus 1 over 2. P over q. Okay? And then plus or minus 2 over 2. And so that'll be simplified to plus or minus 1. Well, since we already have a plus or minus 1, we don't need 2 of them, so we'll get rid of 1 of them. And so our possible zeros are plus or minus 1/2, plus or minus 1, and plus or minus 2. Well, unless we have our calculator set to 0.5 for our x values, you won't see 1/2 on your table of values. But we may see plus or minus 1 or plus or minus 2. Okay, so let's take a look at that. And we're going to enter that into our calculator. And we're going to put in here 2x to the 4th. And it's a good idea to check these as you go along. It's easier to check as you go along. Plus 3x, and then exponent cubed. Again, check it. Minus 4x squared. And notice this wraps around, but it's still part, that square is still part of x. Minus 3x plus 2. Okay? And So now we go to our second end table, and we're looking for 1 plus or minus 1 or plus or minus 2. Well, here's a 1 and a 0. Okay? So we can use 1. So we'll start with that. So here we go. We have our polynomial, p of x, and I'm going to rewrite it again. 2x to the 4th plus 3x cubed minus 4x squared minus 3x plus 2. And we know that we have 1, right, as a factor. So we're going to look for the other factor. So we're going to apply synthetic division, put 1 in there as our divisor, and we're going to put 2, 3, negative 4, negative 3, and 2. 2, let me make sure I got them all here. 2, 3, negative 4, negative 3, 2. Okay, so drop the 2 down. We're going to multiply 1 times 2 is 2. And here we have a positive 3 and positive 2. That's going to give us a 5. 1 times 5 is 5. We got a negative 4 and positive 5, so that'll be a 1. So 1 times 1 is 1. And we got a negative 3 and a positive 1, so that'll give us a negative 2. 1 times negative 2 is negative 2. And sure enough, we have a remainder of 0, so 1 is verified that 1 is a 0. Okay, so we started with a leading exponent of x to the 4th. So that means we're going to have 2x cubed as a quotient plus 5x squared plus 1x minus 2. And so that's our other factor for our polynomial, 2x cubed plus 5x squared plus x minus 2. And factor by grouping is not going to help us, because if we split it, we're not going to get x minus 2 out of this first half. So factor grouping is not going to work. So let's see, we can go back to our table of values, and we should be able to come up with a possible 0 of 1 or 2. If not, we may have to see if 1/2 is. So let's take a look here. Here's negative 1 is also a 0. And we used negative, we used positive 1 last time, and this time we'll use negative 1. So we'll say x minus a negative 1, right? And so we're going to use negative 1 as our divisor, and we're going to use the quotient from the last division operation as our dividend. So we're going to put 2, 5, x, and a negative 2.